Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Strategic Source webinar. This is David, the session producer, and the topic, like you see on the screen, is reducing utility costs with our guest from JIT Services. Anyone that has a question during the time, there's a Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. And then at the end of the time, we'll ask you for your feedback in a very short post-session survey. Starting out the session today is Doug Austin, CEO here at Strategic Source. Doug, take it away.
Thank you, David. Well, welcome, everybody. We're glad you joined today. We've got a great session on utility charges that we're offering today with Mike Menzel of JIT Services. You know, Strategic Source is providing now at least twice a month webinars with innovative, proven suppliers that can help address your expense challenges. We will be providing topics along typical traditional expense categories that you use, but we'll also be introducing some on the audit and recovery side. So this kind of covers both today. We're going to be talking about the utility expense category, but also audit and recovery opportunities that can help you pull back some dollars to your bottom line. The third topic that we have, it's not presented today, but is new revenue opportunities. So keep an eye out for announcements from us every 2 weeks. We are planning to run another session, again, with innovative, proven suppliers. So with that, I'll talk to you for just a couple of minutes at the end of the presentation, but with that, we'll turn it over to Mike Menzel and JIT Services. Thanks again for attending.
Well, thanks a lot, Doug and David, much appreciated. Looking forward to doing this with you today. It's fun kind of putting this material together. I'm pretty passionate about saving money on utility bills, so looking forward to presenting. As a matter of fact, we're going to kick this thing off with a quick poll. Just kind of curious, and please just answer yes or no on the bottom. Have you ever wondered why your utility bills are so high? It's a question we're asked frequently. And today, as you're answering that, just really quickly, we're going to talk about a number of ways that you can reduce your costs that are associated with utility bills. Today, we're going to mostly focus on the supply side, which are ways that you can reduce your costs without actually reducing your energy or water use, but also provide a few nuggets in terms of demand side savings. We'll dig into, flat-out errors and rate changes, taxes and energy procurement, and then I will, at the end, also cover some energy and water reduction opportunities. So, yeah, it looks like preponderance of you have had inquiries as to why your bills are high. So let's dig right into how to avoid that. Before getting into some of the details, I'd like to give you a little bit of background. At JIT Services, we've been around doing energy cost reduction work since 2002. We're based in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area in Minnesota. However, we work throughout North America. We're basically a team of sustainability stewards that are trying to turn utility data into positive environmental action that impacts people, planet, and profit on behalf of our clients. From an invoicing perspective, one of the things that we do is we receive utility bills on behalf of many organizations that you see on the slide there. We get all that information off the bills and try to do data analytics and rate optimization. A lot of organizations need to do sustainability reports, so all of that information is kind of at their fingertips. But at the same time, we're helping everyone from single commercial buildings to affordable housing to multifamily to Fortune 500 companies try to reduce their carbon footprint and save money. Like I said, we've helped different organizations of different sizes, and whether you have one location or a handful of locations, we can certainly try to assist you as well. So let's dig into some helpful hints. The very first thing that I'd probably stress is that it's really important to pay attention to the utility bills. Oftentimes, organizations just, receive the bill, get it into your accounting system, pay the bill. And I really do recommend trying to track the information a little more specifically, like put in the consumption information. It provides you a method to watch for anomalies. It gives you a chance to compare yourself to other organizations. And whether you're using an internal spreadsheet to track that or contracting the services out, I just strongly recommend tracking the energy and water use. It's certainly one of the best ways to identify errors. By tracking those trends, comparing the sites to each other, you can start to see that, this location, had a really big increase in consumption, or maybe the unit cost went up. Those are really good kind of issues that will trigger the knowledge that you've got some issue in your bill. Also, a lot of organizations are requiring their supply chain to report sustainability initiatives. So by being able to track that, you have that ability to immediately turn in energy or water efficiency reporting to potential suppliers, potential customers of yours, I should say. So tracking the utilities are certainly important. So now I want to really dig into the meat of this presentation. I'm going to tell you about what we're looking for. And really the first thing that we're going to talk about are flat-out errors. And I'm going to try to give you helpful hints on things that you can do on your side of the fence with your bills. The first error that we oftentimes see are related to demand charges. What are the demand charge? Well, commercial bills are very complex in the electric world. Basically, they have a lot of different line items. Demand is really the very single 15-minute or 30-minute peak of energy use at your facility in a course of a month. And most of the larger commercial bills are going to have some level of demand charge. So it is not uncommon, because demand is affected by so many components and a thing called power factor, that demand is an issue on quite a few bills. And it affects minimum and maximum bill rates, and it also can provide situations where let me rephrase it. If in the middle of summer you have high demand charges, oftentimes utilities will have like a minimum charge in the low months. So one of the complex item, but anyhow, demand is normally an area where we find issues. Talk a little bit more about the water and sewer use. If you look at your water bill, every gallon of water that is charged oftentimes has a gallon of water for sewer that's charged. And in most communities, sewer is actually more expensive than water, so it's something to keep in mind. But there are certain situations where you don't have to be paying the sewer costs. Maybe you have some irrigation and you didn't set up your account to track that irrigation separately. Could be that you have a cooling tower and a lot of that water is evaporated. If you're an organization that uses water as an ingredient and that water goes into the product, then it's not going down the sewer. All of those are examples of opportunities to save money on your bill by reducing your sewer bill rates. I did an audit for a clinic, Minnesota clinic once, and the city was actually charging, they were double charging all the irrigation. It was ironic that they were trying to do a deduct, but they ended up double charging all of the water that was used in irrigation. So communities, city communities, municipalities are pretty less sophisticated normally in their billing methodologies. So we would normally find issues on municipal bills more common than, say, a public utility, but they all have errors. Meter reading issues. Oftentimes, a utility might do some sort of an estimated read, and they don't catch the actual read properly. So we've seen numerous situations with meter read issues. So dissect the bill and see what if your end read last month is indeed the begin read this month. And oftentimes when a meter goes over its capacity, let's say it's a 6-character read, and it gets up to 999,999 and triggers over, some utilities struggle properly billing when it kind of resets itself. So meter reading issues are pretty common. And there's certainly numerous other types of errors. So flat-out errors are pretty commonplace. Let's talk a little bit about rate changes. So tariff books or rate books often have various options for organizations. The very first thing that happens is you open the building and you're set at a certain rate, and you might, these tariffs oftentimes say, hey, if you're below 25 kW, you're on a small commercial service. If you're above 25 kW, you go to a medium. If you're over 1,000 kW, you go on a large service. So the rate books oftentimes have different situations, and you should be able to take advantage of those depending on how you use your power. So I know that Strategic Source provided us an opportunity to review some bills for a Minneapolis area car dealership, and over the course of years, they ended up doing some efficiency projects, and they were kind of stuck in a mid-range bill rate, but upon looking at it, they should have been on a smaller rate book, tariff rate, I should say. And by just contacting the utility and putting them back on that rate book, they were able to save, I believe it was almost 18 to 20% on their bills just by being on the proper rate. One other thing that's very common in rates is that you have the ability to go on a time of use. So let's talk a little bit of a good candidate for a time of use bill. So if you're an organization with a lot of exterior lighting load, particularly if it's on a separate meter, that load is on at night and obviously off during the day. And a lot of utilities, because their peak energy use is in the day, will offer lower prices at night or on weekends when the grid is not being as heavily used. So if you run a 24/7 manufacturing location, maybe you're a restaurant that opens up at 4 o'clock and has evening and bar hours and weekends, understand your hours of operation and your electric use, and then you would assess if a rate makes more sense for you than the one that you're on.
We do a lot of audits of suppliers, and we certainly uncover errors where we can go back for recovery. What percentage, and I know you receive a lot of your clients' invoices, but what percent of invoices you receive do you actually see errors on? Is it 2% or 10%, or what does that look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it's certainly, flat out errors, it's going to be, less than 1%. I mean, there's so many utility bills that go out, but when they do occur, they can be expensive. I will also say of the hundreds, if not thousands of errors that we've identified over the years, I think we're up to 5 that are in the favor of the customer. So for some reason, they're always favoring the utility provider. Now, that's just flat-out errors. Now, could you, the percentage of finding rate changes, or we're going to get into a couple other examples for procurement and taxes, that's probably closer to the 5 to 10% range of opportunities. But for flat-out errors, certainly 1% or less.
Okay. Thank you.
Let's go to the next section. So what else are we looking for? Taxes and fees and utilities. They're complicated, often can require an energy engineer to generate a report. So for example, if you're a manufacturer, you're doing production, you're doing R&D, your utilities are in many states considered an ingredient and can be partially or fully tax exempt. multifamily in many states are also have certain exemptions, maybe not necessarily all year, but during certain months. There are, very unique situations state by state. Minnesota, for example, have car washes that have exemption opportunities. But anyhow, taxes are a very interesting item if you have if you're in a business that has exemption opportunities. They're often just kind of hidden there and forgotten about on a utility bill. And it's a very easy way to generate some refunds and ongoing savings. Sometimes if you have an exemption that's applicable, a utility will ask for an updated certificate, and if you don't provide it, they start charging tax again. So it's something that shouldn't be just viewed once. It should be viewed frequently. In terms of energy procurement, so the map that you're seeing here is a map of which states have either electric or gas procurement opportunities, meaning that you actually can select who provides you the electric or the gas. You can't choose who delivers it. I mean, the power lines or the gas pipes are certainly what's called a distribution, and you pay that no matter what, but you have the ability to change your supply in many of these states. Why is that important? Well, first off, if you're on a default rate in one of these states with the utility provider, you're probably paying more than what you would if you were with a supplier. Additionally, procurement often will allow you to lock in a price, which gives you a lot more budget certainty. One of the items, you might have heard some horror stories from the Texas storms in February. I'll share a couple of examples and how that's affecting a lot of organizations in the Midwest. So in Texas in February, it got so cold, they had issues with power, and everything spiked down there. Prices spiked beyond anything the market has ever seen. And as a result, organizations that didn't have locked-in prices were getting real-time costs that were, 100 times normal. And we had, fortunately not clients of ours, seen a couple of bills where a normal $10,000 bill came in at about $240,000. A normal $400 bill came in at $10,000 for the month. So that was just all the immediate. But what it has done, when say Iowa, Nebraska, Minnesota all receive their gas from a lot of that gas comes from Texas, and some of the gas utilities up in the Midwest here ended up paying exorbitant prices during a few hours and a few days during that storm. And they're now going to public utility commissions asking to recover those costs from the ratepayers over a course of a year. So if you're a South Dakota or an Iowa location, for example, you're probably seeing on your gas bills significant unit cost increases in the last 4 months, and those are going to continue for the next 8 to 12 months. We think there's going to be some announcements in Minnesota coming up soon that they're also going to be trying to pass on some costs. In those cases, if you're in a market that has had some of these penalty gas prices that are getting passed on, those would be good opportunities to check with us to see if there's opportunities with your particular location. But certainly, for example, if, in Iowa, South Dakota, if you're in Nebraska, if you're served by Mid-American Energy, Black Hills Energy, those would be complete no-brainers to try to get some savings.
Mike, and
yep.
Is there for the deregulated states? Is there any opportunity to prevent those kinds of things from happening? In other words, is there any potential for a rate lock even if you're in a deregulated state?
Yes, absolutely, Doug. So, let's just use Texas as an example. Illinois also a good market, and most of the upper Northeast. But let's just use Texas as an example. When you do procure from a third party, you have an option of going what's kind of like a variable rate, or you can lock in. When you do lock in, you then are prevented from the same issue that occurred in Texas. And as I was explaining earlier, fortunately, the clients that we work with, we almost always recommend a locked agreement. It provides, like I said, budget certainty, and they ended up being protected from those issues. If you some of these states that are not showing here, I'm sure one quick question, Doug, or comment. Some of the states that are white, larger users still have opportunities. So, for example, if you're a larger user in Wisconsin or Minnesota of gas, you actually can procure your gas from a third party, even though it's not showing on this. They're not fully deregulated, but they have some partial opportunities. So, Doug, what were you going to ask there? Sorry about that.
Just answer my question. So, for the regulated states, is there any opportunity to protect yourself? And it sounds like there may be. It may not be as cut and dry, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And in regulated electricity, you're just going to basically be trying to reduce your consumption, be in the right rate that we talked about in Section 2 of this rate optimization area. Gas has a little more opportunity the larger user you are. So anyhow, energy procurement, certainly a good fit for us to assist you with there as well. I'm not going to get too deep into power factor penalties, fairly complex item, but on your electric bill, you'll often see a percentage. Many utilities will say that you have to be above 90% or 95% of power factor. When you see on your bill power factor below that number, those numbers, you're likely being penalized and receiving additional fees. And there are things that you can do to reverse or get rid of those power factor penalties. But it would require a small investment in terms of capacitors and stuff. But when looking at bills, those are the five main things that we're trying to identify on the supply side. Let's pull up another quick set of questions here, or a question, I should say. When we just talked about all this, curious if you've ever had a utility bill audit or rate optimization study completed for you. There are, what we've talked about is certainly something that you're able to perform on your own, at least a number of these items. However, we did certainly encourage you to use an expert. You run your business, allow us to do the part that we do best, and that's to try to figure out what rates are best and which bills are possible errors and where you can save. So looks like the group is primed for a bill audit. So thank you for putting that up on the poll there. So we'd certainly love to provide you this no investment, no cost, no risk opportunity. We guarantee the results. Basically, if we ultimately do not find any savings for you, we do not charge anything. And I think one of the things that's kind of neat to understand is when you're doing a rate optimization with us, you're either going to get one of two things. A, you're going to generate some savings that you had no idea were available to you. It could be in the form of refunds, could be in the form of future savings, or it certainly could be both. The other component the other result that might come out of it is we end up telling you, hey, you're in good shape. We reviewed your bills. We reviewed the rate book. Everything looks like you're in good shape. We're giving you an A on your report card, basically. So that's why we think a rate optimization review is kind of a no-brainer. Let's talk about some of the FAQs that when we're asked questions. First one, where do you work? Well, we basically work throughout the entire U.S. I've even mentioned North America. We've got customers in Canada, Puerto Rico, couple Mexico ones, but U.S. certainly provides plenty of opportunities for us to help with utility rate optimization. Oftentimes we're asked, how far back can you go for a refund? It's certainly going to depend on the state or the situation. Typically, a rate error can, at a public utility, you'll be able to go back 2 to 3 years. Taxes are often 3 years or more, 3 to 4 years in some states. As a matter of fact, Missouri has a 10-year look back if you're paying erroneously on taxes in Missouri. So every state's a little different. When are we paid for our services? Like I said, because this program is typically contingency-based, once we prove to you that you've received the savings, you've received a check, you've received a credit on your bill, or the utility bill is now lower each month, that is when we would actually invoice for our work. So it's a very positive cash flow guaranteed situation. We only are paid once you've received the benefit. Oftentimes we're asked, why doesn't the utility company tell us about these opportunities? Well, they don't necessarily know your business. They don't know exactly how you're operating your hours. And to some extent, they're not motivated to reduce their revenue. But there are some utilities that actually proactively send out, hey, you are on the best rate right now, or if you change to this rate, you will have some savings. If you get those type of letters from a utility company, we almost always agree with those types of suggestions, and you'd be safe to make the recommended change by the utility. But that is so few and far between. Typically, our fees, kind of depends on how large of an opportunity and how many sites that you have. 40 to 50% of a refund is normal for us, but that means you also keep 100% of the future savings. And if we provide services that don't generate a refund, then we typically request that same percentage for about 1 year's worth of savings, and thereafter it's all yours. There was a question about confirming that we do work in Canada. So absolutely, Canada is very similar to the U.S., where they do have various rate opportunities. There are certainly procurement opportunities in some cases, and they also have tax law that can benefit certain types of businesses. So yes, Canada is also a very good candidate for these services. We've certainly provided probably hundreds and hundreds of savings opportunities for our clients over the years. These are some of the most recent. R&D facility here in Minnesota ended up with a $166,000 refund, and they'll save about $45,000 a year. One of our clients that does food manufacturing received an erroneous water bill. We caught it in the process of doing the data tracking and received a $5,098 credit back from them. Pet food manufacturer, interestingly, they opened a new facility over the course of the first few years. Didn't realize that they could be exempt from tax on their bill, generated a $450,000 refund and about $150K a year in savings. Small apartment owner, had 4 apartments. They got about $10,600 back from some refunds and saved about $7,000 a year. Manufacturer with 3 locations receives, I think almost $60,000 in refunds and about $24,000 a year. And we've helped medical device manufacturers, regional brewery, multiple breweries, but there's one local one, $6,000 refunds, $3,000 a year. I know that Strategic Source does a lot of work with car dealerships. Unfortunately, most dealerships don't have tax exemption opportunities. In the event you have a car wash that you're typically using to wash your own vehicles, but you are also using that car wash for the public to use at a pay-for-service. That could be an opportunity for some exemptions, but it kind of depends on what state you're in and how you use it. Like I said, every business is different, every state's different, but those are some of the kind of recent opportunities that, or I should say, recent projects that we've assisted clients with. It's always pretty rewarding when you have a very happy customer receiving those type of funds back. So what are the steps to utility cost reduction? The process is pretty simple. First, we need to learn a little bit about you, what you do, how many locations, who we're contacting. The second thing that we'll do is provide you a contingency-based proposal that you can review and execute. At that point, we ask you to send us a one summer and one winter utility bill for all of your utility accounts. And then from there, we ask a utility release be signed at the same time. That allows us to not have to burden you for more information. If we get the one summer and one winter bill, it tells us a pretty significant story. And then at this point, we can request all the history right from the utility providers and not have to put more time and expense on your side of the fence. And then we deliver either the report that says, hey, you're in great shape, or we give you the ready for signature documents to generate the refunds or recover a billing error or make a rate change. So it's a pretty simple process. We really try to take all the work out of it from your end once you provide us those bill copies. Actually, let me go back one more comment on that. Again, depending on how many locations, how complex the bill audit when the rate review is, typically if we're looking at just a single location or two, we should be able to turn the analysis around within a couple of weeks. If you have a whole bunch of locations, that could take weeks to a couple, 3 months to kind of firm everything up. And then in some cases, when submitting for refunds, those might not end up, even though we might submit the refund, a utility or state agency or city or whatever might take a few weeks or months to even put that credit or issue the check. The next slide. So really what I just provided you was a whole bunch of information of how to save money on your utility bill, but it has nothing to do with conservation, reduced water use, reduced electric use. I think just because of, just listening to some of the reports on climate change from earlier this week, the cheapest gallon of water, the cheapest electron for electricity that you use is the one you don't use. So if you can start reducing your consumption, you end up reducing your bills. Here are some kind of no-brainer helpful hints. The first thing is look for no-cost, low-cost savings. So we talked about an energy treasure hunt. Walk your property, walk your building at night when no one's there, or during the weekend, or maybe you're a night operator, walk it during the day, and listen and look for things that are left on unnecessarily. It is a really easy task, can be kind of fun, depending on how large your building is. The typical scenario is somebody will take a map of their building, maybe it's like a fire escape map you post on a wall or something, and have either yourself or a team walk around and put notes on what things were identified. Maybe you have space heaters were left on. Maybe your setback thermostats are showing that the fan's going all the time and you don't need it on in the middle of the night. So those energy treasure hunts are a really good way to find savings. Look at your thermostats. If you have thermostats that have setback opportunities, or you have a control system with schedules, review them frequently. And do setback where possible. Make sure they're operating accordingly. So no cost, low cost are oftentimes easy opportunities to find savings. Next thing would be look at planned upgrades. If you have a capital plan, or hey, next year we're going to replace rooftop units, or we're about to do, we've got some lighting, lights out in certain areas. Don't necessarily replace like for like. Review energy efficiency upgrade opportunities, and utilize the utility rebate programs to the fullest. Not every state has rebates. Matter of fact, Ohio just stopped their rebate program last year. But almost all states do have, and utilities have some sort of a rebate program that incents you to put in energy efficient equipment. The best way is to contact your utility provider or an organization like ourselves to find out what type of projects make sense. And then the next item are being intentional about projects. LED lighting is such a kind of a no-brainer in many cases. The payback due to the energy reduction is great. They last a lot longer, so maintenance savings is reduced. So being able to get a quote for LED upgrades from quality contractors is really important. Strategic Source and JIT would be very good candidates to lead you down a path of quality contractors, and also what type of products might make sense. Water conservation is kind of a new hot button, if you will, these days. Toilets, for example, need to be recommissioned every once in a while or reviewed. If you have a public restroom, private restroom in your building, and you just hear the water going, you have no idea how expensive a leak in a toilet can be. If the flapper's stuck open, it's immensely expensive. So, being able to, catch those water leaks, correct for those errors as soon as you find out, or if you have lots of toilets and a lot of employees at your facility actually doing toilet and/or sink shower retrofits, can oftentimes have a quick payback as well. By the way, lighting can have paybacks, easily, whether it's just a handful of months to 2, 3, 4 years max. So just a lot of opportunity to reduce costs by being intentional about your energy efficiency. It's always fun to talk a lot about this. Webinar atmosphere. I look forward to getting some of the questions, and it looks like we have quite a few coming in. So I'll certainly address questions. But you'll have this information for contacting us. Again, my name is Mike Menzel. We got our website there. Like I said, we're based in Excelsior, but work throughout the U.S. and Canada. A colleague, Matt, does a lot of work in conjunction with Strategic Source. So either of us would be great points of contact to start. Should we go into some questions there, David and Doug?
Sure.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. We have the Q&A box on the left side of the screen. Doug, go ahead and restart your webcam to join Mike. And we ask everyone to stay on a few more minutes. We have a post-session survey we'd love to get your feedback on before you depart. So we ask for that. All right, questions have come in. Let's begin with this one. What is the strangest billing error that you have found?
Strangest billing error. I think of a handful. However, we were, again, the importance of data tracking. There's an apartment complex in Kansas that it was seeing its electric use steadily go up. Actually, it went up, it kind of spiked and then stayed up. And we were providing them alerts like, hey, walk your building, what's going on? And the maintenance individual there was like, nothing's changed. We've literally walked all the units. The lights are on the same amount of time. Long story semi-short, we actually had our electrical engineer go down to the site, sat there, met the utility provider, and they realized that a leg of the transformer, and I'm not going to do this justice, a leg of the transformer had an issue, and it was pulling the power from a neighboring building onto its meter somehow. So they ended up getting, I think, $60,000 to $70,000 back after months and months of chasing this awkward situation down. But yeah, that's just one of many strange ones, but by far the strangest, where you're actually paying for a neighbor's power.
All right, two questions here regarding rebates. I'm going to read them both, and you can put them together as you feel. We see advertisements on TV and as bill inserts that reference rebates from energy companies. How do I obtain rebates? And similarly, this was asked, how can you determine whether there are exemptions available? Just a moment. Let's.
Okay. Yep, I see those questions. Let's address both of them here. So first off, the rebate question that you see on TV would normally be the utility provider saying, if you put in upgraded lights at your business, you get a rebate. The utilities are going to be pretty cooperative in trying to help you kind of go down that path, and normally they have other resources to support a commercial customer with rebates. But pretty much anything that will reduce energy use is rebatable. We know of manufacturing situations where they upgrade a line to be able to produce more widgets, and in that process, they become, even though they might use more energy in the process, they can get a rebate by saying, hey, I can produce more widgets on less energy per unit, and utilities will often do a custom rebate. So anything you think is going to have a possible energy savings likely can get a rebate. And by the way, it goes for the same at your home. Whether you're upgrading a furnace or air conditioner or lights, you oftentimes can get rebates from your utilities there as well. The second question I was asked was about how do you figure out if exemptions are available to you? Well, you can do the work yourself and try to go to the state. Typically, the state has some sort of a sales tax website, FAQs, and they typically have a section about what types of things are exempt. Oftentimes, you can do a quick search for electricity exemptions in the state of whatever, and you'll get to a section that will start talking about that. But the easy way is to reach out to us and tell us what state you're in and what type of business you're in, and we'll let you know whether you have an opportunity. But trying to learn about exemption opportunities. There's also oftentimes a help desk that you can call your state sales tax as well. I did see a question pop up, a couple that were really interesting. One is we're under a contract for pricing for electric and gas for the next couple of years. Is there anything we can do with us? The answer is absolutely yes. Right now, the prices of gas actually have gone up pretty substantially, and the prices of gas for the next 1 year are pretty high, so congratulations on locking in your rate for a couple of years. But the market from 2 years out and further is actually really, really low right now. So we are actually having a lot of our clients lock in 3-year agreements and such right now. So it's kind of good to just kind of keep a gauge on your market, the market I should say, and when your contracts expire. And I would almost never say wait till the last minute to enter into a new contract. There's opportunities to look at prices on a seasonal basis and lock in consistently in the future. So we'd love to talk to you about that interesting opportunity. I saw another one that's interesting. We just moved in April of this year, so we wait to have 1 complete year to do an audit. We were at our previous location for 3 years. For that situation, I'd recommend doing 2 things. I wouldn't necessarily wait. A bill audit can oftentimes be done as soon as you move in because you could be just set on the wrong rate right out of the gate. So why pay costs unnecessarily on a go-forward basis? And don't think about just your existing building. You should probably, the one that you moved out, take a quick peek at that, because if there were errors or refund opportunities on those, you still might be able to recover from 2 to 3 years from that location as well. So Yeah, utility bill audit and rate optimization can be done anytime. Any other ones here? Let's see.
There's one just confirming whether you did work in Canada.
Yes, I thought I covered that earlier. Yep, we do. Canada is a really good market, very similar to the U.S. They do have tariff books and different rates, on-peak, off-peak. There are some areas of energy procurement and also some tax exemptions that are available. So Canada is a good spot too. You know, in the event, I'm not sure, what type of business all of you are in. Manufacturer, if you're a manufacturer, I want to get a little bit more into that on the tax exemptions that are applicable to manufacturers, which could be food production, breweries, bakeries, R&D, widgets, anything that's doing production, R&D, quality control. Like I said, most states require an energy auditor or an energy engineer to determine how much of the energy is going directly into the production process and how much of that energy is going into a non-exempt use. Non-exempt would be creature comfort, the coffee maker in your waiting room. It could be computers for office use, lunchroom, cafeteria. All those would be non-exempt use. So a manufacturer that can benefit from our service, and some of those examples we were showing meant that an energy engineer went out, spent a lot of time on the property, logging information, getting nameplate data, making counts of light fixtures, and generating a report that is defensible to an auditor, a tax auditor, that says, hey, we've identified 62% of our electricity is going into exempt use. Here's our report. Here's our exemption certificate, and you kind of have to have some basis upon reaching those percentages of exemption. So utilizing an energy expert to put those types of reports together are very, very important. They help prevent bad audits, if you say, from a tax standpoint. And if you don't have a report, we've had a handful of organizations reach out and say, hey, I am in an audit. The auditor's asking for our existing study. It's been 10 plus years. We don't even have a copy of it anymore. Can you assist with a study, an energy study that would provide us the proper exemption? So for those of you that are in manufacturing, that's a very important service that we provide.
We can keep with the question and answer here, but we did want to catch everyone before they departed today. Just a 3-question post-session survey. You spent an hour with us. We'd love to get your feedback on this. Please let us know that, but otherwise I will go ahead and let Mike and Doug continue here.
Yeah, I don't see any other questions. I'm trying to think of, one thing, as you're answering some questions, I saw a couple of announcements. Xcel Energy Colorado, for example, just issued a request for a 12% rate increase. In Minnesota, Xcel Energy, even though they haven't done a rate increase, there's a couple lines of the bill that if you compared your May, June, or July bill this year to last year, rates have gone up about 12 to 13%. And I think they're going to be coming out with a rate change, or rate request, I should say, a rate increase to the Public Utility Commission. So we're seeing a lot of these utilities make requests for increased rates. So it's more important than ever to be ahead of the curve in terms of trying to reduce your utility spend, putting in place energy efficiency. So I guess my fair warning there is if you're starting to look at budgets for 2022, utilities are kind of looking ugly for the next year with rate increases. This has been a lot of fun. Doug, thanks for having me today.
Well, Mike, really appreciate your presentation. I usually don't have this many comments to make, post-webinar presentation, but I've got a lot of them to make today in support of what Mike's doing. You know, Strategic Source, we're primarily a procurement company, but we do post-supplier audits as well. And I will tell you that there's a couple of red flags out there that you need to be aware of. We did a telecom implementation for a very big group in California a couple of years ago. And because they had so much turnover at the GM level, they moved to a new supplier on the telecom side and neglected to turn off the previous telecom supplier. So we put $100,000 overspend, and we are able to get a recovery. So the point is, when you change suppliers, make sure you shut off the old supplier. That's rule number one. Number two, and again, we don't get into the detail that Mike's group does, but here's another example. There's a large East Coast group that was selling off some of their businesses. And they sold the building, but they never shut off the utilities. So they continued to pay the utility costs for a building that they sold to somebody else. So if you're in acquisition mode or disposition mode, make sure you're shutting off those utilities. We were able to get a credit in that case and get the utility responsibilities transferred to the new buyer. But those are a couple of examples. And that happens in growing organizations that have a lot of people, a lot of activities. You know, sometimes you just don't check all the boxes and things get overlooked. I will say, as leaders and managers of companies, which are normally the ones who attend these webinars, I think you want to make sure that you're taking steps to address expenses and have some peace of mind that that expenses are being managed. I have to remind you all that in a dealership, in particular auto dealerships, there are about 130 expense categories that require your attention every year. Utility is a complex one, and I think what Mike has pointed out to us today, that if we don't pay attention to it, errors can come in, rates can be higher than they need to be, and a multitude of other things that need to happen. So if you haven't done a utility optimization study or audit, I'd encourage you to consider that and obtain that peace of mind that can come from knowing that, you know, you get that report card, A, you're doing a great job, or C, you know, there are some opportunities out here. Utilities is but one of those 130 categories. So most dealers today are pressed for time, and it just makes sense to me to reach out to an expert who knows this industry, not only in North America, but Canada, inside and out, and it's really no risk. So time is limited. You know, look for that utility audit. I think that makes a lot of sense. I don't believe for a minute that suppliers are trying to cheat us or you when errors occur, but we know that, you know, when we review invoices internally, that we're seeing anywhere from 4 to 5% line item errors at a price level, and that isn't just utilities. That's items, you know, widgets and services and things like that. So I don't think vendors are trying to do this intentionally, but big organizations sometimes miss the boat. And if you're just signing off and approving those bills, you may be overspending. So I'd again encourage you to audit track. The last comment I want to make, Mike mentioned LED retrofits. We have been involved with numerous companies and clients doing LED retrofits. The dollars are huge, and we can help you with that. And the point that I want to make is that not all suppliers are created equal. There are a lot of fly-by-night suppliers out there who get into business because they realize that LED is a hot topic. And I personally, my company, we try to vet those suppliers. We try to make sure that they're credible, that they're profitable, that they have resources behind them. But let the buyer beware. Caveat emptor is the expression here. They're not all created equal. So if you're considering an LED retrofit, you ought to consider it, but make sure that the supplier has got the financial backing and the wherewithal to see through the project, because a number of people can make big down payments on materials and then be left holding the bag if that client goes out of business. So I can speak from experience on this. Let us help you. We're there to assist. Mike, that was an outstanding presentation. As much as I thought I knew about utilities, I realized how much I didn't know, and we really appreciate what you did today. I just want to make one final closing comment here. The webinar presentation will be made available to everybody today. Just contact us at sales@strategicsource.com. If you're not a client of ours, and if you're interested in cost reduction in general, I think you can see that, we're a company that we admit we don't know it all. We know quite a bit, but we don't know it all, and we're tapping into folks like Mike to help make us a stronger company and deliver results for clients. So if you're interested in maybe some solutions that we can provide, get a hold of Chris Austin. There's his phone number, 612-386-3898, or email us at sales@strategicsource. This webinar will be up on our website probably by tomorrow. So if you missed it or only were able to attend part of it, that webinar will be in its entirety available to you tomorrow. We really thank you for attending today. If you're a customer of ours, we thank you for your business. And we really appreciate Mike and the information you provided today. And let us know if you have any questions. We're happy to help. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you, Doug, and thank you, Mike, and thank you, everyone who attended today. And we look forward to you joining us on future webinars with Strategic Source. Have a great rest of the day, everyone.